Well, first, thank you for coming. It's great to see you guys. So I have a couple things to do. The first thing is pretty tough. I'm reading a letter written by a girlfriend I had in the 90s. She was really close to Dad. She actually lived at 19 Kennedy, Dad's place, for a couple of years. They used to sit at the kitchen table and drink tea and talk for hours. And so she wanted to be here, but she couldn't because it was a family sort of situation. So she wrote a letter, and now I have to read it out loud. And the problem is whether I can actually hold myself together while I'm reading it. Because my speech is one thing, that'll be tough enough. But this is it's pretty special. It's pretty special. So this woman, this is Karen Badcock. Some of you actually met her, I think. Kay, she goes by. So Kay writes this. I'm very sorry I couldn't be here today as you pay tribute to a wonderful man whom I knew and called Big Dad. I recall the first time I met Big Dad. It was the summer after Keith and I taught in Korea. Keith told me all about his father, his stories, and his quirky and fun side, and how they played golf together. When I met him at 19 Kennedy Avenue, he not only welcomed me into his home, his family, but also into his heart. He was quite the character, full of life, generosity, and had many amazing and wonderful stories. I remember him telling me of how, as a small boy, he would watch the tugboats, and ocean-going ships from the docks in Newcastle, Australia. As soon as he finished high school, he started training as a machinist and completed a 4-year apprenticeship. His first position was on an American saltwater oil tanker based out of the Philippines, and soon he was traveling all over the world. It was years later, when his father took ill, that he returned to Australia to care for him. During this time, he took up ballroom dancing, where he met the love of his life. I can't recall her name because, I love this line. I can't recall her name because he always lovingly referred to her as Mom. Along with Mom and her 2 sons, he moved the family to St. Catharines. The Great Lakes provided him the opportunity to work on the ships, as well as the opportunity to create a home and put down roots. Sadly, too soon, Mom passed away after battling cancer. After nursing her through her illness and dealing with her untimely death, Big Dad returned to work and focused his attention on work and to being an active and even more devoted father. He wanted nothing more than happy, prosperous lives for his sons. Never a day went by that Big Dad didn't think of or mention Mom, and on their anniversary or her birthday, he would put flowers on the table for her. This was the kind of man he was, thoughtful and giving. Behind that tall, tough exterior, and his nickname was the Croc, was one of the most generous, considerate, and loving people I've ever met. When I think of Big Dad, I remember all the good times we had together, his funny expressions, and I can picture a few of those right now. She was pretty good. She left them out, and being discreet. Planting vegetables in his garden, his well-tended rose bushes, going for a drive and walk around Port Dalhousie together, going to dinner in the casino. I'll always cherish our trips with Rosie down to Cape Cod. I remember his laugh, his jokes, the smell of his cigars, and the way he called me little one. If he knew you enjoyed something or had a hobby, he would invest in it wholeheartedly. I recall once saying that I liked Mr. Freezy's, and that evening I came home to a freezer full of them. Another time I said I liked making vine wreaths, wreaths made out of vines. He must have raided a dozen vineyards getting me vines to use. He made me feel special, like I was family. He was certainly family to me. I'll never forget our phone calls and visits, though I wish there would be more in his last few years. I guess we always think there will be more time. I remember last time I saw Big Dad, I'd been at a conference at Brock University and slipped away to take him out for Chinese food. Afterwards, we went back to his apartment. He showed me his keepsakes, the rooms, his kitchen, Keith's books. He spoke of Mom, talked about Keith and how he's doing over in Hong Kong, hoping Mark and Ian and their families were doing okay. After a long hug and goodbyes, I got in my car to leave. I turned around to wave one more time. As I pulled out of the driveway, I looked back once more to see him still standing, waving on the balcony. I watched him till I could see him in my rearview mirror. I didn't know that would be our last goodbye. When Keith called to tell me that Big Dad had gone, I felt immense sadness and loss. When I think about Big Dad, which is often, I treasure the time we had together, remember all that he taught me, and I'm thankful to have known him and to have such wonderful memories. And if there's an afterlife, I hope he is happy and with Mom and ballroom dancing wherever they are. God bless Big Dad, I love and miss you. So that's wonderful, right? Beautifully written, simple, true, real. And that's from Karen Badcock. So yeah, I got through that. That wasn't too bad. Still in one piece. It's funny, because I don't even know why I'm doing this, to be honest with you. It's 4 years later. I know why I didn't do it, and Dad died, because I was a complete wreck. And I felt like, I really want to, me, I like to speak in public. I want to stand up and talk about Dad, and I knew I couldn't do it. So then about 6 months ago, I figured, I can do it now. I can do it now. And then about 2 weeks ago, I started to think, can I? I'm not so sure anymore. In the last 2 weeks, as we get closer and closer to Dad, I get shakier and shakier. And this morning, I was very shaky. And it's all written, sort of, but it's just about whether I can actually say it or just sort of like, collapse into a puddle. So I'm going to try and say it. Kay has sort of like preempted me a bit. I was going to give you a little bit of a rundown, but she kind of gave the rundown. And it was well said, so I don't need to say that. But it's funny, because originally I was just going to tell a bunch of stories. I had like 5 stories, and it was tough to pick which 5 because I have so many great ones. So that was tough. And then, as I started thinking about stories, I started to see a theme. And I'm an English teacher, so you have to excuse me. I see themes everywhere. And so if you need a theme, the theme is that Dad was a really lucky guy. He had a great life, and he was really lucky. And it's funny because it nicely goes with my sort of feeling about this because, nobody could feel more lucky than me to have Dad, to have had him be my dad, and to have had the life I've had. So I'm very lucky. He was very lucky. I'm even luckier. And that's your theme if you need one. It's like a Cole's Notes version. Now I don't even want to see the speech, do I? Okay, so I won't go into all the stuff. He was from, the bush in Australia, and he was a machinist by trade. And but one of the reasons he was lucky is because his personality, his character, so perfectly matched his job, right? And that's a lucky thing. That's a very lucky thing. So to be a machinist, I don't know if you know what a machinist is. Basically, you take a chunk of steel and you're working on the lathe, you shape it, and then it's like a piece that you put into a machine or engine. Now, I'll tell you, that has got to be perfectly done. It's not going to work otherwise. And Dad was a totally crazy perfectionist, so it was perfect for him. It really matched. Plus, Dad loved being organized, and I know it's hard to believe because you know me, but Dad loved being organized, loved being prepared, and sailors, especially marine engineers, I've said before that they're a bit like Boy Scouts on steroids. These guys are very prepared. Very prepared. You should have seen the truck, the way he packed the truck for camping trips. Most people take 2 hours. He'd take about 12. It would just be this just horrible, painful experience. And I wouldn't be able to help. I'd just sort of get yelled at if I got too close, and then I just sort of watch, and maybe go get beer. But the thing is I'm not sure why he was doing it that way. I know it. Like I said, he's a chief engineer, he's a sailor, he's Keith Hall, but it was like if it was picked up by a tornado, like the truck was picked up by a tornado, we happened to run into a hurricane or something, the truck could be thrown 2 kilometers, and everything, all the equipment would just be perfectly fine in the back, just perfectly fine. So anyway, Dad was nuts, basically, is what I'm saying. But he was lucky because, both as a machinist and as a chief engineer on the boat, his personality, his character really matched what he was doing for a living. Let's see, let me skip that bit. Oh, okay, so nicknames. Nicknames are fun. So Kay described Dad a little bit in different ways and stuff. And so I thought a fun sort of shortcut insight into Dad's character would be via his nicknames. And as far as I know, he had two. I suspect there were more, but we all have a few that we like to forget about, probably. And the one I knew from the ships when I was growing up was the one Kate mentioned, the Croc, right? The crocodile. So he's this fierce, driven Aussie, demanding everything had to be right. And if it wasn't done right, which it never was, he'd rip you a new one. That was his mode of sort of operation. But the other nickname I only learned later in life, and it too was from the ships apparently, but before my time. And it turns out Dad's other nickname was Mother, which is so perfect. It's so weird, but it's so perfect. The Croc and Mother, both very fitted. Because in addition to that fierceness, the drive, he was very loving and nurturing. A natural caregiver. I'll never forget in the Princess Margaret Hospital in Toronto, when my mom was there for cancer, when she had cancer, and I'll never forget there was a nurse there that said that she had never seen a more natural born nurse than my dad. Amazing. So of course, on to Mom. Can't talk long about my dad without mentioning Mom. He certainly didn't talk long without mentioning her. Talked about her nonstop for about 25 years. And as most of you know, probably Dad was crazy about Mom. He thought she was the moon, the stars, and the sun. And the only one luckier than him in this case, as far as meeting her, was me. Because it really must be one of life's great blessings to be raised by two people who are that in love. Doesn't happen as much as you think. So I was lucky. So there's many stories I could tell about Dad's devotion to Mom, but I'm just going to choose one, and it's a doozy. And it's true, even though it's really great. So okay, so imagine it's 2008. I sold Dad's house to a young couple. So they signed, and they wanted to come to the house to take some measurements. And Dad had never met the couple before. Bizarrely, I was actually in charge of this, and even more bizarrely, it actually all worked out, and the house was sold. But anyway, so Dad never met the couple. I was inside with the husband. The wife was running late. I come out the front door. She's coming out the garage door, and she's tearing up, and she says, "Keith, give me a hug." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know your mom just passed away." And I went, "She didn't. It's okay. It's a long time ago." And she said, but your dad, the way he was talking about her, I thought it just happened." And I said, "Yeah, he does that. That's kind of his thing." So this all took place in 2008, and my mom passed away in 1980. Thanks, Eric. That was perfect. Exactly. Unbelievable, right? Okay, so a couple last things. Life lessons. These are fun. So obviously Dad can be pretty eccentric especially when it came to those he loved. He wasn't an intellectual type, but he was very wise. So I wanted to share a few of my favorite pieces of Dad's advice. And the first one's classic, and it's very Ridley sort of centric. Just before I went to Ridley, so this is grade 6, right? Way back when, 1982. Dad talked to me about bullies. You gotta watch out about bullies. They're gonna come and they're gonna bully you. The big kids are gonna bully them. So you gotta fight back. And what's disturbing about that is later on, every time in a movie someone's going to prison, that's what the people say, right? Like when they come for you, you gotta fight back. That's always disturbed me ever since. But anyway, that's what Dad said. He said, you gotta fight back. And I said, I've never been to fight in my life, right? And I said, "No, but Dad, I'm scared." And he said, and I'll never forget this is a solid goal. He said, "Maybe everyone's scared. Everyone's scared." And it's true, right? It's true. Everyone's scared, at least a little bit. Anyway, I've carried that with me. Now the second piece is, a little bizarre. I don't actually even know what it means. One of his favorite sayings was, "You gotta play the game. You gotta play the game." And I used to go when I was a kid, like, "What? What game?" And then he would go, "The game, mate, the game." Okay. You want to be it? And so I'll give you my interpretation, because it's kind of gnomic and weird and suggestive, and I have no idea what you actually meant. But I think a couple of things. Dad was he was a law and order guy. He was a rules guy. You follow the rules. These are the rules. You follow the rules. You do things properly. You do it the right way. And I think for him, rules weren't restrictive, right? They're the kind of thing that created opportunity, didn't restrict. So I think he kind of meant that. You got to follow the rules. And I think he also kind of meant there's just a lot of stuff in life that you don't want to do, but you just got to do it. And maybe both of these things seem obvious now when you're 40-something or whatever, but as a kid, I mean, it's pretty good advice. Of course, like I said, I'm just guessing because I have no idea what he's talking about. Anyway, so that's it. Everyone's scared. You got to play the game. And the last one, probably most important, and I think these might have been the last words he said to me before I left for Ridley, was, "Mate, whatever you do, just don't get caught." And that was it. And off I go, 10 years old. So anyway, okay, so let me tell you one more story. Dad's last day. And for this, I really ask him, you have to suspend disbelief here, because it's an incredible story. It's so incredible that I'm not sure I believe it myself, and I was there, okay? But it really happened. And it's only really cool and awesome if it's true, and it is true, okay? At least as far as I can remember. So let me just tell you about the day Dad died. So, well, first, after Dad got sick, I resigned in April, so I'm in Hong Kong. I resigned in April, but then I said I'd finish my contract in Hong Kong, which ran until the end of August. So I resigned in April. Dad's still fine, right? He's on his own, he's living, he's okay. And I'm coming home at the end of August. And then early August, Dad takes a bad turn and goes into the hospital. At this time, I'm in contact, with, I was going to say my dad's guardian angel, but really both my dad's guardian angel, Jackie Langley. And after a few days, Jackie tells me that Dad, he keeps asking, "When is Keith coming home? When is Keith coming home?" And Jackie keeps saying, "August 30th, August 30th. And when I heard this, I got on the next plane. So then I'm home around maybe the 12th. Right? And I'm there every day with Dad from the 12th to the end. And, I'd go in at noon. He's in the hospice, right? Up near Brock there. I go in at noon for a couple of hours, then I go home for a couple of hours, come back at 5 until the end of visiting hours, which is 8 o'clock. But let's fast forward to August 30th. When I arrive at the hospice around noon, Dad's unconscious. Right? So he hasn't woken up yet. And I'm not sure how long he's been unconscious for, but he's unconscious around noon. So after a couple of hours, I leave. I come back at 5. Now, as soon as I walk in, I know, like, this is it. This is the end. The nurse explained to me this is what they call the death rattle. I don't know if you've heard this, but it's just a horrible sound. It's just horrible. Basically, the organs begin to shut down, and the death rattle is the sound of the lungs taking their last stand, right? Just opening and closing. Like these sort of mechanical bellows, and it's a desperate sound. It's tough. Anyway, I sat there for a couple of hours listening to that, which was kind of crazy, and then turned on Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. So I don't like either of those shows, but we used to watch them like over supper, right? And so we used to watch them, through August. Now, about halfway through the double Jeopardy round, Dad's breathing slows. Right? Slows. I got up, walked around to Dad, took his hand, and then a few minutes later, slows again. So it's just the pauses are growing, in between breaths. And then a few minutes later, stops breathing. And I'll never forget this. I turned to the clock on the wall, and I couldn't tell whether the minute hand was the minute hand was splitting the 1 and the 2. I couldn't tell if it was 7:59 or 8 o'clock. And you'll remember that when Dad first took a bad turn, he's constantly asking when I'd be home, constantly getting the same answer, August 30th. Dad dies August 30th. You'll remember that visiting hours ended at 8 o'clock. I'd been getting up to leave every day for 3 weeks at 8 o'clock. He died right at 8 o'clock. Again, I can't explain it. Okay, I can't explain it. But like I said before, Dad was a perfectionist. He was a rules guy. I mean, honestly, I think he did. I don't know how he managed it, but he did it on purpose. Like, he really did. He died the day I was originally expected home, and at the minute I was expected to leave. Of course, I wasn't going anywhere. But to Dad, it's like, visiting hours are over. And it's amazing because he hadn't been conscious for like at least 12 hours, maybe 24 hours. I can't explain it. But I like the story because it compels me to believe that he died as he lived. Everything was done properly. And everything was in order. Just perfectly done. Anyway, that's it. One last thing, maybe, I'll just say, and this is kind of a general thing. You guys all know, my passion is reading literature and well, I was going to say teaching others how to do it, but let's say trying to teach my students how to read literature. It's sort of like I get they look up from their phone for a minute, a quizzical look like, who are you? And then, oh yeah, okay, back to Facebook, yeah. But anyway, one of the most important lessons of literature is that, none of us are the heroes of everyone else's life. They're not supporting cast to our leading role. But this is a lesson that must be relearned every day, over and over, because, the ego is greedy, for affirmation, cunning. It's good at getting what it wants. It wants to take over and wants to make everyone else, supporting cast. So that's a good lesson that Lit teaches. But Lit goes further because it even argues that, in many cases, we're not even the hero of our own lives. Not just everyone else's, but not even of our own. That's what David Copperfield's about, Dickens' great novel. And I'm pretty sure you can guess who the hero of my life is. But it's not just Dad and Mom. It's a lot of people in this room too, and a lot of people who aren't in this room. I've said this before a few times, and if you've heard it, I'm sorry. I only have so much material. But without people in my life, whether it's Ridley people, family, friends from the ships, I really feel I'd be kind of almost like a cardboard cutout of myself. That's what I imagine. Like sort of one-dimensional, flat, flimsy to the touch. That's, I don't know. So, I don't even know why I'm really talking about this, but it was an interesting thing I thought to say. And obviously, Dad was my hero, but I think, I guess what I wanted to say is, today is about expressing sort of my gratitude for Dad, but also about expressing for both of us our gratitude to you, like you all, and for all life has offered us. I think both of us have been extraordinarily lucky. Me just a little luckier. So thank you, and sleep well, mate. Sleep well.